I am super excited to bring you this conversation. Over the last few years, the great Dawn Madsen, she goes by the Minimal Mom. She's got an enormous YouTube show that's just jam-packed with helpful stuff. And you might be asking yourself, why does a guy who pretends he's a tough guy with a bunch of tattoos who goes hunting and loves mixed martial arts, why does he hang out and have a friendship with the Minimal Mom? A woman who helps women clean their homes and moms clean their homes and I guess dads clean their homes. And I'll tell you why. Because Dawn is a great human being, very, very wise. Not only at this idea of decluttering and creating space and freedom in your home, but as you'll see in this conversation, she's somebody that I call personally. Because when I was writing Building an Unanxious Life, I got stuck. I was surrounded by so much stuff. And it was one of the first times in a long time I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call. I didn't know where to go. So I called my friend Dawn. And in this conversation, we talk about mental health and clutter and stuff and identity. She's so wise, full of so much wisdom, and she's just a great person, like I said. So check out this conversation between me and my great friend Dawn Madsen, the Minimal Mom, right here. Conversations I had with college students over 2 decades and landing on this word addiction. And so when I think of addiction, they've told us for years it was a moral issue, right? If you're addicted to something, it's because you're terrible, you're bad. And then it shifted to, well, it's actually, we got a picture of somebody's brain, and so we found it's an addiction. It's a disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now the conversation has shifted to, no, addiction is your body trying to solve for the madness that it's in, right? Whether that's old trauma stuff or whether it is something hard or tragic or abusive that you're sitting in the middle of, addiction works, right? Until it doesn't, until it kills you.
Yeah, right.
Right? And so you and I have talked offline, and I haven't talked about this very much publicly, but I can be so good about my diet and so good about exercise and so good about plugging in with my kids and so good about like working hard to be a good husband. Mm. There is something protective about the chaos that is all the clutter in my life. Yeah. And I think I called you during writing the book when I stumbled on some literature about anxiety and clutter, being surrounded by stuff. Yeah. And a brain that's designed for scarcity has found itself in the 21st century surrounded by just stuff all the time.
Right.
And I don't know what to do. Right. And you and I've talked, like, I sit there in my house surrounded by the stuff, and getting rid of it feels like I'm losing a part of me.
Right.
And the definition of addiction is repeated behavior despite increasing, mounting negative consequences, right? And I can't stop. You know what I mean? And so I don't understand this connection between clutter and addiction. And we've tossed it off as mental health disorder. I don't think that's it. I think it's something deeper than that. Yeah. That I'm wrapped up in these things.
Yeah.
Help me, please.
Right. Well, and we like to call it identity clutter. Okay. And so you're absolutely not alone. I think this is something many can resonate with. For some, it's books and guitars. Teachers, especially, they find a lot of identity in books. They're also in the academic world. Craft supplies, workout gear, hobby things. We're constantly trying to show the world, look, this is who I am, right? And you've said this before. Your books, look how smart I am. Yeah. My books say that. Right? Yeah. And so what if you take all my books away and my guitars and my craft supplies, then what's the world going to think of me? And that's not wrong though, right? Like you talk about this. In a tribe, we need to look successful so we don't get left behind.
Fair.
So that's why I want brand name clothes and a nice vehicle. It's not wrong that we want to look successful or we want to look cool. We want to fit in.
So my body's doing right by itself.
It's not wrong, right? The problem is for most of us, so I like to talk about this as inventory. So everything in our house is inventory that we have to manage. And for women, I think we have to manage more than men, honestly. Mm-hmm. And so everything is inventory. And so many of these things are useful, they're helpful, they're making our life easier, but it's all inventory that we have to manage. And so we can have a certain amount of books and guitars, and that's great. They're useful, they're helpful. You can go down to your basement, hang out, and jam until it gets to the point where it's not. And so it's kind of like this, scale tips, right? And you're like, no, I don't go down there and feel inspired and I just want to hang out. I feel stressed because there's way too much inventory down there. And that's where our friend Fumio Sasaki comes in, because he's like, he calls it the silent to-do list. And those things are nagging at you.
All the time.
What does that stuff say to you?
But that's very similar to a drink. It's fun to have a drink with your buddies.
Yeah.
And then the second one.
Yeah.
And then it's when you can't stop.
And it's fun to order books on Amazon.
It is.
Yeah.
And they show up. I got another one yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I'm off book tour. I like to go down a rabbit hole with one author, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. Except I usually get 2 books in, and then I quit, and I've got 7 other ones, and I'm always going to get to them, right?
Yeah.
Another older book of this one author that I love showed up, and it was sitting on the thing, and my wife puts it out now as this like shining moment, like this beacon of shame. Just you did this, right?
Yep.
And I can't tell you the feeling I got. It felt so good. Mm-hmm. Like I got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it was going to make you smarter,
I don't
more
even have
interesting.
to open it because I already have the reward.
Totally.
Right?
Right.
That's an unhealthy addiction. That's not right. That's not whole. It's not good.
It would be okay if you went down to your basement and got rid of 4 more books.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah. But I need those to tell me I'm okay too.
And that's just it. And I think this idea with the silent to-do list, so it's this idea that all of our stuff is sending us messages. Read me, play me, take care of me, organize me, don't let me get wrecked. And Fumio will even say the longer we've neglected something, the louder the messages get, right?
Gosh.
What a loser you are because you have not read me, you have not taken care of me. And it really represents these broken commitments with ourselves, right?
Lies to yourself.
Totally.
It's addiction.
I said when I bought that book I was going to read it, or at least skim it, right? And I have not even done that. And so it all represents these broken commitments to ourselves. And what does that do? Makes us feel even worse about ourselves.
Yeah, you
right?
keep secrets and
good
you
in the
shame.
moment.
That's right.
Right. But what do we do? Right? Because we're still here with all the books.
Yeah, I think it's, my tendency is to skip over this part, which is the discomfort with the only path I can see forward for me is submitting to like, I'm powerless here, right? It's that very old, it's that old 12-step thing. Like, I outsource my identity to books because they make me feel like I'm smart. Mm-hmm. I outsource my identity to guitars because they are some magical link to when I was 18 and I played in punk clubs, right? And I can't let that guy go.
Yeah.
I outsource myself to the fanciest hunting gear because I've convinced myself that if it all goes down, I'm all right. I'm that guy, right? And I can just keep going.
Yeah.
But I have to deal with the fact that I can be proud of myself for not outsourcing how I feel to the internet, right? People can leave me in comments, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't outsource myself to my mom and dad or my in-laws, right? They don't get a vote, right?
Sure.
But dude,
there's
something so powerful about these things. And I have to sit in that discomfort and say, I do that, right? I do let books, I do let guitars, and to people listening, your dishes, your perfect sets, your furniture, your perfectly made bed, all the throw pillows, right?
Right.
How much we outsource stuff. And then that imaginary conversation, that's what, when you told me that privately, that melted me. Like are you just going to give up on us? Remember you were cool?
Yeah.
Oh, you're just not going to read us? You're just going to be stupid forever?
Right.
Oh, you're not going to do the dishes? You're just going to be that kind of husband? That's just how you're going to be?
Right.
And those voices never stop.
And I think that's why then when you look at the research, and it literally says now, clutter releases stress hormones, right? Like you have told me in the past, if your house is very cluttered, you don't feel safe in it. Your body cannot fully relax. And I think it's because these messages, we look at it, we're like, it's just stuff. It's a book. Right. Like it doesn't talk, it doesn't breathe, it does nothing, right? But that's why it's these messages. So, I know the minimalists, they have their rule, like the spontaneous combustion rule, right? And they even asked you this at one point. John, if all of your books spontaneously combusted, how would you feel? And you had said, I would kind of feel relieved, right? The decision's made for me.
That's it. Yeah. There would be this terror, but also this...
Yeah, but once the dust settled, kind of like, oh, good, I don't have to make that decision.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's good though, right? Because you can recognize then, I don't need all of these books. Basically what you're saying is, I would be okay if some of these books go. You don't have to get rid of all of them. But unfortunately, they didn't spontaneously combust and you're still there with them. Right?
So what do I do?
Right. And you've been trying to do this on your own.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, for a long time.
We do, right? We're like, I got myself into this mess. I need to get myself out. And often we're embarrassed by the clutter. Yours is kind of like sophisticated clutter, right? Books and guitars,
Right.
But for a lot of us, if I have a full bedroom stacked with boxes of stuff, a basement, an attic, I can't even imagine inviting someone into that with me.
Right.
And I feel like you would be the first to tell other people, call a friend. You're going to give them purpose, right? They're going to feel so special when you pick up the phone and call them and invite them over to help you. And so what keeps you from inviting someone into this with you?
Shame.
I'm going to use your own words against you that it's not, I realized it wasn't a character flaw. I just don't have the skills.
That's it.
Right?
I'm not broken. I'm not an idiot. I'm not a loser.
No.
I don't know how to do it.
Right. So you've probably heard of body doubling.
I hate that.
Right? Have you heard of body doubling? It's a great tactic for people with ADHD. All it is having...
Tell me more.
Yeah, right? All it is having someone come and help you. So I have an appointment Saturday morning. I'm going to have someone who I trust with this. They're going to come over. And often what's very helpful is that you might need to tell the stories of some of these things. You might need to say, oh, I remember in grad school when I got this book, or this person came to speak and I was so enthralled with them and I wanted to be like them, or I love this thing they said. That's always stuck with me. So I feel like I need to keep the book so I don't forget that or I don't lose it. Or, my goal for today is to clear off this one shelf. And so you're literally just here to hold me accountable.
Is that okay to go do one shelf today?
Oh, yeah. Yes. We often glamorize like, I need to set aside the whole weekend and I need to get this all done. And that is too overwhelming for most of us because it's a lot of work. I mean, you're literally going book by book and saying, do I need this? Do I not? And you'll say, because we're trying to imagine the future, right? Am I going to need this book in the future? Am I going to want to reference it again? You're awesome at quoting other people in your books, right? And so I love it, like how you bring in just everything. And so you might, what if I need it in the future? But that's anxiety, right? Trying to predict what I am going to need in the future. So there's also a part where we need to accept that there is risk involved with this. There is some risk. And that's a great, if you can invite someone over to help you body double. Again, body doubling is just literally having someone come over. They can do it virtually. I mean, it's scientifically proven. This works virtually. This is why like clean with me videos are very popular because you're literally cleaning alongside someone else, even though it's virtually.
I never even heard of that. It's like doing aerobics online.
It's awesome. It's not surprising though, right? Because we're made for community and we need people, right?
That's right.
So not surprising. So that's body doubling. And you might need to tell the person, okay, here's my goal. Here's my fear. And you need to tell me it's okay. We don't want to invite someone over who's like very creative and like, oh, you might want to keep that for someday. No, you're fired. Like you don't work for this. And so you might need to tell them like, hey, there is some risk. We don't know for sure if I'm going to need this in the future. So just remind me if I hold something up and I'm kind of going back and forth, if I'm going back and forth, it's a sign I don't need it, right? If it's not a clear yes, it's a no. And so
that sounds like a good Instagram maxim, but that's real.
It is real because we only use 20% of the stuff in our house. As Americans, we only use 20% of the stuff in our house. But we have to acknowledge, and this is where I think sometimes people oversimplify it, is that there is risk involved with this. So I grew up on a farm in Minnesota. My dad was phenomenal. So when you're on a farm, there are things going wrong every single day.
Correct.
All the time. And my dad, it was so fun because he would see each thing that went wrong as a problem that needed to be solved. He didn't get frustrated. He was like, how are we going to do this? And if his initial fix, what he tried to do, didn't work, he was like, oh, I guess we got to try something else, right? And so I grew up in this environment where it was okay to make mistakes. It was okay to try. And not all of us grew up in that type of environment. Right. And so 8 years ago, when I have 4 kids, ages 4 and under, my house is a disaster. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, I am not enjoying being a mom. This is not the picture that I thought this was going to look like. Nothing like it. And so I'm looking around and then I hear this podcast with Joshua Becker, who's a well-known minimalist. And he's like, did you know you don't have to have all this stuff? And I'm like, no, I didn't. I thought this is what you have when you have 4 kids and a house and everything. And because I'm okay with taking risks and it's okay if I make a mistake, I could, over the course of the next year, get rid of 85% of our stuff and I could do an experiment and I could just see what was going to happen. And it turns out that it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made. I do not miss any of this stuff. And so sometimes we need to borrow that confidence from others, those who have gone before us. I mean, you look at the minimalists, my goodness, they're preaching it from the rooftops, right?
Right.
Guys, this stuff doesn't fix anything. We look at, we're collecting data, right? Like I need data. You have not read any of those books in how many years, right? And so sometimes we need facts, and we need to remind ourselves like, okay, this feels unsettling because maybe for some of us, we're in an environment even now where it's not okay to make mistakes. And there's someone in my household, and I don't think you're in that situation, but for others, that is they are just ready to point it out if you got rid of something and now you need it again. It's very unlikely you need it again, but in the off chance, they are ready to say, see, this decluttering doesn't work. See, you're just going to go buy all this stuff again.
Or you shouldn't have bought it in the first place.
Exactly.
You're right.
It's very complicated.
So as you're talking, I keep landing on this one thing, and I'm always stunned. And it sounds like what you're telling me is I have to come to terms with the fact that I'm not 19. And what I have to do is grieve that gap, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm not 19, and there's not a chance that some band's going to call me. That ship has sailed. That doesn't mean I can't play guitar, and that doesn't mean that I can't jam with my son and my daughter and have fun.
Yeah.
But I have to let that part go, and that's hard.
But again, I think that's where inviting someone else in it, we need to tell our story, right? We need a big part of grieving is someone else witnessing it.
That's right. That's it. You have to say it out loud.
And so to invite someone over and to say, hey, I got this guitar when I was this old and when I had this dream. Mm-hmm. And so this is hard for me to let go. Like, let them know that.
Here's the other problem. I've only recently started not just trying to make enough money to have groceries. Yeah. And so these things aren't old relics. This is me trying to recapture. Yeah. This is new money, right? Yeah. This is stuff right. I'm using current money to buy 18-year-old dreams. Yeah. The guitar that the kid never could afford when I was playing. Yeah. Or the shoes I couldn't have. Mm-hmm. And I have to let go. If I have one superpower when it comes to writing and stuff, it's a freakish ability to remember there's one line in this one book that I read 9 years ago, and I'll find it. And I have to let that superpower go. Because there's this one recipe that one time, there's this one dish that everyone laughs at when they come over. And I think we all hold on to that thing. Yeah. And suddenly it's not a superpower. It feels like it is, but it's not. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not. It's pretend.
Yeah. And so that's, again, where we can have someone to witness it. We go a little bit at a time. So again, we're not going to try and declutter all your books in one weekend, because what happens if you will do, even if you say, I'm going to do 10 books today, is you start to gain confidence in yourself, and you start to say, hey, I got rid of those 10 books and I didn't actually miss them.
The world didn't end. Yeah.
No. And then I got rid of 10 more, and now there's 100 gone, and it actually feels better down here, right? I feel like I can start to relax a little bit. I don't walk in this room and think, oh, I need to do this, and I need to organize these, and I need to dust these, and I should read that one, right? And then we realize the silent to-do list is quieting down. I can start to enjoy this space how I'd hoped. But that's where I think doing it gradually, we gain that confidence in ourselves so that we do trust the decisions that we're making. One other thing, don't start with identity clutter, sentimental stuff, the hardest stuff. Start in your kitchen. See, I think the rest of your house is probably pretty simplified. Don't start, on the spectrum, this is the hardest stuff. You are working through the hardest stuff right now. So it can be helpful to start in other areas of your home, your kitchen, your clothes, stuff that's more easily replaced. Clothes might be.
She said this morning there's a stack of T-shirts, and she said, hey, we've exceeded the number of hangers. She said, it's time to... and she goes, or you can go buy more hangers. And that's always her, you can go buy more hangers, or you can. And dude,
I'm hoping you'll make the right decision.
When I just go through these shirts, it's I love that one. I can wear that one. And it's insane. It's not rational, right?
Right.
Oh, man. All right. So I'm going to take from this two things, and tell me if I'm crazy. The clutter, the stuff, is almost like, it's the gaslight on it's the engine light on the car. It's not the problem. It's this sense that I'm using other stuff to try to feel good about myself. Mm-hmm. That's number one. And number two, you weaponized my own words against me. I can't do this. I gotta say I can't do this by myself, and I need to get somebody else to help me.
Yeah.
Who will be honest with me, which for me is probably gonna be my wife. And if I can't think of a greater aphrodisiac in my home, if I was to be hey, would you sit with me for like 4 hours to help me get some of this stuff out? I can't even tell you what that would be in our house. You know what I mean?
Right.
Gosh, I just have to do it.
But again, small piece.
That's right.
$10. I'm just gonna start.
But tell me if this fails. It feels like it fails, and I feel like I try it, but I feel like it's also like a little blankie that keeps me warm. Is I'll put stuff in a box and I put it in the attic and say I'm gonna practice. I think it's got to go.
Yeah, I think you need to just fully get it out of your
go.
house. You need to complete it, get it out. That's the only way you're actually going to build trust with yourself.
That's it. Yeah, because
is
I know
to
it's
fully
kind
get
of
it out
still
of the house.
Yeah.
No safety nets with
You're right on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming by and helping.
Yeah.